What does modern Britain taste like? Ask anyone under the age of 40 today, and you'll get a very specific answer. Nando's. What is it about a flame-grilled chicken chain with Afro-Portuguese roots that allowed it to conquer the British high street and heart? How did a restaurant born in Johannesburg, inspired by the flavors of Mozambique, somehow become the default setting for first dates, post-gym meals, and pre-cinema rituals across the United Kingdom? This story begins thousands of miles away in Rosettenville, a suburb of Johannesburg, South Africa, back in 1987. It was here that two friends, an entrepreneur named Robert Brozen and his Portuguese-born friend Fernando Duarte, walked into a humble local takeaway called Chickenland. They ordered the restaurant's signature dish, flame-grilled chicken marinated in a fiery, zesty peri-peri sauce, a sauce made from the potent African bird's eye chili. That single bite of chicken sparked a light bulb moment for Brozen and Duarte. They knew instantly that a taste this good was too special to stay hidden in one small corner of Johannesburg. They bought the restaurant, renaming it Nando's, the short version of Fernando, in honor of Duarte and his firstborn son, who shared the name, and so the journey began. They expanded across South Africa, building a reputation for delicious, consistent, and charismatic food. From the start, however, the brand's true destiny was to go global. In 1992, Nando's landed in the United Kingdom. The British casual dining scene at the time was a world of beige. Your choices were largely limited to pub grub like scampi and chips, high street so-called Italian chains like Pizza Hut, or American imports like McDonald's. The market was crying out for something new, something with a bit of personality. The first UK Nando's opened in Ealing, West London. For years, it was a slow burn, building a cult following one plate of chicken at a time. But by the time the new millennium rolled around, Nando's had evolved into something far bigger than just a chicken shop. It had found the perfect recipe to tap directly into the heartbeat of British youth culture. To understand the explosion of Nando's in the 2000s, you have to understand that it wasn't an accident. It was the result of a perfectly balanced formula, a holy trinity of food, vibe, and price that no one else had managed to crack. First, the food itself. Peri-Peri chicken was the ultimate Trojan horse. It was exotic enough to feel special, but it was still, at its core, chicken and chips. A dish no Brit could ever find intimidating. The real genius, however, was in the customization. The Peri-ometer, with its scale from plainish to extra hot, was a stroke of brilliance. It handed control to the customer, turning every meal into a personalized experience. It created tribes within friendship groups: who was brave enough for extra hot, who was a lemon and herb loyalist. It sparked a debate, banter, and a sense of ownership over your order. Combined with bottomless frozen yogurt and self-serve soda fountains, it felt generous and empowering. Second is the vibe. Nando's created a new category: fast casual. It wasn't a pub, so you didn't have to be over 18. It wasn't a greasy takeaway, so you could feel good about eating there. And it wasn't a stuffy restaurant with waiters hovering over you. Each Nando's featured unique, colorful South African art and was filled with the sounds of Afro-Luso music. It felt vibrant, authentic, and a world away from the sterile, corporate branding of its competitors. And third is the price point. Nando's hit the absolute sweet spot. It was affordable, but not dirt cheap. It was a step up from McDonald's, but significantly less expensive than a visit to Pizza Express or Zizzy. For students, young professionals, or families, Nando's was the perfect solution for quality without breaking the bank. This combination created a space that was uniquely classless and universally welcoming. In one restaurant, you could see a family celebrating a birthday, a group of teenagers on a day out, a couple on a date, and a famous footballer grabbing a takeaway. Nando's had become a great British unifier. By the late 2000s and early 2010s, something incredible started to happen. Nando's transcended from being just a popular restaurant to a legitimate cultural landmark. This transformation was fueled by two of the most powerful forces in modern culture: music and celebrity. UK musicians, particularly from the burgeoning grime scene, began to adopt Nando's as their unofficial canteen. The trend of name-dropping Nando's in lyrics or interviews became a sign of authenticity. This connection felt so powerful because it was a genuine reflection of how people felt about the brand. Nando's didn't mind all the attention they were getting. In fact, they embraced it. They created the now legendary Nando's Black Card. a pass that granted the holder and 4 friends free Nando's for a year, but it wasn't available for purchase. This exclusivity resulted in near mythical status. They were gifted discreetly to influential people who had shown a genuine pre-existing love for the brand. This created an aura of mystique and exclusivity that money couldn't buy. The black card became a piece of modern folklore. Rappers bragged about it in their songs, which generated even more free publicity. Nando's had become cool without ever having to say it was cool. And then came a generation-defining bit of slang: cheeky Nando's. This phrase bubbled up from the primordial soup of internet culture in the early 2010s. If you're not from the UK, the phrase makes absolutely zero sense. When social media was really starting to get a stranglehold on UK pop culture, the cheeky Nando's was right there at the forefront. The beautiful, absurd truth about it is that no one could properly explain it, and that was the entire point. Cheeky, in this context, is a vibe. It's a little spontaneous, slightly indulgent act of fun. It's the decision to go out for a bite with your mates when you probably should be studying or saving money. The meme exploded internationally. Articles were written trying to decode it for baffled Americans. The more the outside world was confused, the more Brits leaned into the madness. Going for a cheeky Nando's with the lads became a perfect, ironic encapsulation of a certain type of British youth culture. Once again, Nando's played it perfectly. They rode the wave without ever trying to steer it. No cringeworthy ads with actors saying, "Let's get cheeky." Nothing like that. Instead, the chain became self-aware and in the strange alchemy of internet culture that made it even more relevant. This was what historians will one day call peak Nando's. Between roughly 2012 and 2018, the brand was an unstoppable cultural juggernaut. They had over 400 UK locations, queues stretching out the door, and a brand identity that other corporations could only dream of. But as we all know, nothing can keep climbing indefinitely. In recent years, people have started asking the question, is Nando's still actually good? While this sort of question would once have been met with overwhelming enthusiasm, nowadays the replies are more divided. For every loyal defender, there's a disappointed former fan pointing to the holy trinity of complaints: shrinking portion sizes, steadily increasing prices, and a drop in quality and consistency. This is partly down to industry-wide trends, but perhaps also the magic has just started to fade. Nando's built its empire on a vibe, which is an incredibly difficult thing to scale to 400 locations, and even harder to maintain consistently over time. Nando's still possesses immense brand power and recognition. While it may have lost some of its cutting-edge cool in major cities like London and Manchester, in many smaller towns across the UK, a Nando's opening is still a huge event. It's often the most exciting and fanciest chain available. And also, the mid-2010s rise of food delivery apps like Deliveroo and Uber Eats gave Nando's a powerful second wind, which it still benefits from today. The pandemic accelerated a trend that was already beginning. You no longer need to go out for a cheeky Nando's. It could come directly to your sofa. That said, expanding during a brand plateau is a calculated risk. Nando's is betting that its name and its core product still hold enough weight to overcome the cooling of the hype. Meanwhile, they're still making modest moves to try to remain a part of the cultural conversation. In recent years, Nando's has actively tweaked its menu, introducing plant-based options, new wraps, loaded fries, and seasonal specials to fight off menu fatigue. They've leaned more heavily into their brand story, emphasizing sustainability, their support for African farmers, and their vast collection of original art. They've also experimented with new formats like smaller HighStreet kiosks and digital-first locations designed for delivery. But if Nando's is going to reignite that spark, it will surely take more than a new burger or two. But what do you reckon? Is Nando's still the undisputed king of casual dining, or has the magic well and truly faded? And more importantly, what's your all-time go-to order? Drop your memories and your meals in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. If you enjoyed this spicy deep dive, give us a like, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next one. Cheers for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.